There we go. Okay. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to start working with our peppers. So everybody got a lot of peppers and we're just going to be blistering them. So we have this really cool mix of peppers from Mountain View Farm. They're one of my favorite farms at the market. I feel like they're kind of like an underdog farm that doesn't get necessarily a lot of attention, but if you go to market, go check out their pepper display because they have like hundreds of little boxes like this and they just look so beautiful. So we have like about 6 to 8 varieties of peppers, all sweet peppers in this little carton here. And then everybody should have also gotten a little box of shishito peppers. And we are just gonna blister all these peppers. So I would get out your largest pan. And if you don't have a very big pan, you can warm up 2 sort of medium-sized pans because you don't want to crowd them. I'm going to use this big boy, this cast iron pan, and I'm just going to heat it up on a high heat. And wait a tick for the pan to get nice and hot. I'll usually like hover my hand a couple inches above the pan to make sure I can feel heat emanating from the pan. And as soon as the pan is nice and hot, then we're going to add in about a tablespoon of oil, just a vegetable oil, not your olive oil, just kind of your like canola, safflower oil. And we're just going to, as soon as the pan is nice and hot, we'll add a splash of the oil. And then we're going to add in all of our peppers. If you feel like choosing one little pepper now to set aside for garnishing your gazpacho with, you can set it one aside and we'll like slice it nice and thin to just put on top of our gazpacho as a little garnish. So I'm going with this sort of skinny red guy. And these skinny red ones are called Jimmy Nardello peppers. And they're one of my all-time favorite pepper varieties. They look like they're going to be really spicy, but they're actually kind of sweet like cherries. So I'm just going to save one of those, but all the rest can go into your hot pan. And we're just going to hang out. I like to use tongs for this. So I'm going to use tongs to turn the peppers as they blister so you can get them nice and blistered on both sides. We're looking to like almost burn them a little bit. We want to get like a nice dark char. Yeah, Nicole, you have a question?
Yes, I just want to make sure we're not cutting the little stems off or anything, just going for it.
We're going to blister them all whole, and then after they've cooled a little bit, we'll cut the stems off and chop them into bite-sized pieces.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And the reason for that being the stems being on and them being whole, when we blister them, they're going to create steam inside the peppers that's going to cook them and make them more tender. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm testing my pan out. It's starting to get nice and hot. I'm going to add a little bit of oil and just throw my peppers in there. This doesn't take a lot of finesse, the burning of the peppers. You can even like turn your back on them a little bit. It's not a super precise business, but the one thing you want to be sure of is that the peppers are charred on both sides and they kind of look shrivelly when you pull them out of your pan. And when you add them into your pan, the pan should sizzle. Like it should make a little bit of noise. That's how you know it's hot enough. How many of you guys have had shishito peppers before? Nice. Okay. It seems like we're all on board for the shishitos. So you already know they're delicious. And these peppers are for our salad today, which is one of my favorite summer salads.
Gracie, did the shishitos go in as well?
Yeah. So your pint of shishitos and your pint of mixed peppers.
Okay.
All go into the pan. Yes, shishitos into the pan. And then, yeah, you can have a sip of wine or beer, just chill out and hang out with your peppers until they're nice and blistered up. And your oil might start to smoke a little bit. If it does, just go ahead and turn your hood fan on. When you guys were talking about the caprese salad, you got me thinking too. I've had them before where you make a caprese, but you use peaches instead of tomatoes. And that is also really good. And sometimes you can even grill. If the peach is firm, you could grill it first and then add the fresh mozzarella and basil. And it's like such an easy thing, but I feel like it's like just surprising enough. So as soon as I have a pepper that's like kind of perfectly blistered, I'll show you guys what it looks like. Unfortunately, I cook on an electric stove, so it takes a little while for it to get hot enough and really do its magical thing, but I'm here being patient. I would say anytime that I'm cooking a meal with like multiple dishes, I always like to start by doing all of my chopping before I do anything else. The only reason we're not starting with chopping today is because we're gonna be chopping the peppers, and I want to have them to have a chance to cool down while we finish chopping everything else. And then we'll get our knives out. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm looking for here. Okay. See, it's got a nice dark char on it on one side. So now I'm gonna flip it and I want it to look like this on both sides. Nice and blistered. And you can go ahead and grab a bowl to put your peppers in as they finish, because the smaller ones will probably take a little less time to cook than the big ones. If you want to make this salad at another time and you're grilling, you can always just throw these peppers on the grill as well. It's even better on the grill. Oh yeah. So I just flipped this shishito. This is totally what we want right here. Sometimes I make this salad with padrones instead of shishitos. I've just been noticing that it seems like every year that I eat padrones, they get a little spicier. And I love spicy food, but like a spicy padrone pepper can really blast your face off. And if you have anybody in your who you like to share food with who is at all averse to spicy food, the padrone can be a little too high risk. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. So once the peppers are kind of blistered on both sides and they're starting to swell up a little bit and the skin looks kind of papery and shrivelly, that's when you know it's done. And you can pull it off the heat and just put it in a bowl. And I would say at this phase, we're more worried about undercooking the peppers than overcooking the peppers. I wouldn't be upset if they got really blistery and charred, but if they're kind of raw still, they're not going to be as good in the salad.
Gracie, do you know what these, are these yellow, big yellow ones? What are these?
Those are either a banana pepper or there's like, if it's a little smaller, it's called a snack pepper.
Okay, I think it's probably banana because it's pretty big.
And then, yeah, I have one that has kind of like purpley marks on it. And this is a pepperoncini pepper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to take the fish out at all yet?
Not yet. Not yet. But I like where your head's at. Yeah, the fish will kind of be the last thing we work with, but we will pull it out a little bit before. It just depends because you have the option today to eat it raw or to sear it, or you can grill it. I'm gonna do probably like half seared, half raw, just because I love raw fish and especially albacore. So if you're gonna eat it raw, you want it to stay nice and cold. But if you plan to cook it, then it's good to take it out of the fridge about a half hour before we cook it. So we'll probably take it out in like about an hour. How's everybody's peppers coming along? Good, awesome. Ooh, yeah.
I've got one Jimmy Nardello that's a little unruly and doesn't want to lay flat in the pan, but other than that, doing pretty good.
Yeah, peppers kind of sometimes can just do their own thing, but as long as you get some good blisters on it, should be good to go. So once you've got all your peppers in the bowl, you can sprinkle a little salt on them and toss them. And then we're just gonna set them aside to cool while we do all our other chopping. My two last sort of big peppers are taking a little more time to cook through all the way. Like I have this little red guy that's kind of getting charred, but it still looks pretty tough and raw. It's not very tender. So since I'm cooking on cast iron, I'm just gonna turn the pan off, but leave the bigger pepper just on the pan. Because the cast iron pans really hold heat super well. So that residual heat will kind of finish cooking my bigger peppers. And just give me a thumbs up when you're done cooking your peppers. Nice, Suzette. Almost there. See, we got okay, nice. Holly, all done blistering your peppers. How's it going over in Casey's kitchen with Aunt Angie? Is that your name?
Aunt Lisa and Aunt Judy.
Aunt Jude?
Judy.
Judy. Hi, Aunt Judy. How are your peppers looking, Aunt Judy?
Good. Looking good.
Okay. Just give me a thumbs up when you're done. Oh, yeah, they look great. So the next thing we're going to do when you're ready is we're going to be chopping up our melon. So you can go ahead and get your melons out. These are from Upriver Organics. I think they grow the best melon. I got us all cantaloupes. And you should be able to smell it. Yes, my dog is always hungry, even though he just ate dinner and he's had a million treats. Does everybody's cantaloupe smell good? Yes, that's how you know it's ripe. So you can smell it. These are musk melons, and they're really the best for this salad that we're making. Are we all ready to chop some melon? Yes, okay, great. So you can watch me do this first if you want. I'm gonna start by chopping the ends off both sides of the melon, like so. My dog absolutely loves melon rinds, so he will get a snack, in case you're worried if I'm starving him. So after I cut the ends off the melon, I set it down on one of the flat ends so it's nice and stable on the table. And then I'm going to be cutting a strip of the skin off, kind of following the curve of the melon. So this is what my cut looked like. I cut a strip of the skin off, and I cut kind of like this, following the curve of the melon. And once you cut in, you can kind of see exactly where the rind ends and the melon begins, and just keep your knife, you know, right in that area, right in that line. We're going to be rotating the melon, and as we rotate it, we'll cut the skin off. And you want to leave as little melon left on that rind as possible, because we want to be able to eat as much of the melon as we can. So we're turning the melon, and as we turn it, we're slicing the skin off. And this, I do this with oranges and citrus in the winter. This is how I take the skin off of an orange, the same kind of technique. So this is what my naked melon looks like. Has no more skin on it. Any areas like this that are still a little green or yellow, you'll want to go back and trim off, because that's going to be tough. Luigi, there you go, buddy. So if you want to show me your melon post peel removal, love to check it out and see how you guys did. You're doing okay, yeah. Looks good, Holly. Looking good, Suzette. Beautiful. All right, I see. Aunt Judy's getting it done. And the next step, once you've cut all the peel off your melon, is to cut it in half and scoop the seeds out with a spoon. And you can just, you know, compost them, but just get a spoon and scoop out the center. That's it. That's enough. You're gonna get sick. Okay, one more. So yeah, after you've cut all the skin off, we're just gonna cut the melon in half and scoop out the seeds. How's your melon, Nicole?
I was just gonna show you. How do I turn this around? Okay, yeah, the melon's going good, but I guess dogs like smell the melon or something. We've never given our dog cantaloupe, but he's here wanting it.
Yeah, test him with a piece of the rind.
I've given him watermelon a whole bunch, which he loves, but
Yeah.
never cantaloupe. That's so funny.
Yeah, they love it. I don't know what it is. Luigi is still just standing right next to me, hoping to get more. Staring at me with those eyes. Oh, yeah, Holly's got a dog too. Okay, so once you've got the seeds scooped out, it should look like this.
My dog wants nothing to do with that melon.
Really? All right. No, each have their own preferences. So when I'm done scooping the seeds out, this is how I'm going to cut it. I want to cut it into kind of bite-sized chunks. So I'm just kind of slicing it into about a little less than 1 inch large wedges. So the wedges I'm slicing look kind of like this, but I'm leaving the melon kind of in its shape. So they're all holding together here, if you can see it. All my little melon slices. And once you've cut them into those sort of wedges, you can just turn it 90 degrees and cut them into similar width chunks. So our ideal melon chunk looks something like this. A little bigger is absolutely fine. And once you finish cutting, you can taste the melon. It's good. And then we're going to put it in a bowl. And do the same thing with the other half of the melon. And all your melon pieces do not have to be even. You don't have to go crazy with this. You just want to make sure that whatever size chunk you cut it into, you could fit in your mouth in one bite. So let me know when you're done chopping your melon. Nice. Great. Great. You should still have 2 cucumbers left. I think you all marinated your gazpacho yesterday. Did everybody get their gazpacho marinated and massaged? Awesome. The massaging part's really important. So with these cucumbers, we just want to slice them into similar sized chunks. Casey, I know you don't like cucumber. You do not have to put cucumber in this salad. It is not necessary for the salad to be delicious. So if you don't like cucumber, you can omit the cucumber. But I'm just cutting my cucumbers in half lengthwise, and then again lengthwise, and then I'm just cutting them into bite-sized pieces. These cucumbers are my favorite cucumbers. They're from Upriver Organics as well. They're called key lime cucumbers. And if you've never had them before, I recommend just having a bite of one before you add them all to your salad, because they're just so good on their own. I wait all year for these cucumbers. I've never had a cucumber like that before. Once you can add the cucumbers into the bowl with the melon. They're going to be together. So, and once you finish chopping the cucumber and they're in with the melon, this bowl can just go in the fridge for now. Can hang out in the fridge for a little bit. If you have room in your fridge. So you can go ahead and wipe off your cutting board if it has a bunch of melon juice on it. The next thing we're gonna do is our cherry tomatoes. Is everybody done with cucumbers? Awesome. So for the cherry tomatoes, we're just gonna be taking the stems off of them and cutting them in half. And I like to do all the stems first and then cut them all in half. It's just a little more efficient that way to do all one step and then do all the next step so you can have kind of a rhythm with it. So I'm taking off the tops. It's been kind of a late summer season because we had so much rain in June and it was kind of cool. So a lot of these summer foods like melon and sweet corn have just now come into season. And if the fall comes early, the season's going to be really short. So I'm glad that we have them now and we can eat them, but we got to like really treasure them because it just was a little odd summer here. So once you've cut all this or taken all the stems off the tomatoes with your hands, then we're just gonna go ahead and slice them in half. There's no real right or wrong way to do this. I sometimes find if your knife is dull, it's easier to get into the tomato from the top here where the little stem was. It's an easier point for the knife to break through. Also, if your knife is really dull, a bread knife usually works really well.
I just realized I didn't wash mine. Do you care much about washing these, or are they gonna?
I'm not super worried about it. If you want to give it, if you feel any like dirt or dust on the surface of them, you can give them a rinse. Because they're organic and grown by farmers that we know, there's not going to be anything weird on them. So these tomatoes are going to be going on top of our tuna with corn and fried onions. Pretty excited about that. And when you finish slicing up your tomatoes, they're just going to go in their own bowl. So not in the bowl with the melons and the cucumbers, but in their own separate bowl. Then you can just sprinkle a little bit of salt on them and drizzle a little bit of olive oil just to coat them. Nothing crazy. If you want to measure it, it's probably like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and maybe a tablespoon of olive oil. Just a little bit. And then when you're done slicing your tomatoes, you can give me a thumbs up. Great. Awesome. Okay, we're all cruising right along here. The next thing we're going to be cutting is our corn. And this corn is so good that it does not need to be cooked at all. It's really good just raw. It's so sweet. So we're just going to be peeling off. So I just kind of split it open, grab the tassels and peel the husk off. And you can get rid of the husk and take a second to just peel any sort of, pick any remaining corn silk off of the corn. I know that you can make a tea with the corn silk and it's supposed to be good for you. I can't remember what for. I haven't done it yet, but if you're one of those people that hates throwing anything away, you can keep the silk from the corn and make a tea out of it. It's probably pretty sweet. So there are a couple ways to cut the kernels off the cob. If you have a mandolin, that's my favorite way to do it, and I'll show you guys that. But it's not a tool that most people have in their kitchen, so I'm going to show you some other ways too. But this is a mandolin. It's very sharp and dangerous and like the bane of many kitchen workers because it's really easy to cut your fingers on. But for corn, if you just open the setting, which you like unscrew this little piece here to get wider cuts to the width of the kernel of corn, then you just slide the cob right over it and it takes all the kernels off for you. So I'll just show you one go of that. So I just go like that and it takes all the kernels off. But for those of you who don't have a mandolin, we're just going to be setting our corn on the counter and just use a knife to kind of cut straight down one side. And then you can flip it onto the side you cut. And you're going to cut straight down. So you're kind of cutting off one side at a time, all four sides of the corn. And that I found is the best way to not get corn kernels everywhere. And then I'll usually pick up my corn and just use my knife to kind of carve off those last few kernels that are right on the tip of the cob. And then if you want, you can just kind of snack on the cob. See how sweet the corn is. It's so sweet. It's incredible. Something I like to do in the summer, I like to make a corn soup. And whenever I make my corn soup, I save these cobs in my freezer and I make a broth out of the corn cobs. And it's delicious. Just with a little bit of onion. So the corn, once it's off the cob, can go into the bowl with your tomatoes. And you can kind of break it up with your hands too, so that the kernels kind of separate into little individual pieces. Uh-oh, Luigi, need your help. I dropped some corn on the ground. And then once you've tossed your corn with your tomatoes, we're going to assess our peppers and just touch them and see if they're cool enough for you to handle without hurting your hands. If not, we'll slice the onion next, but if the peppers are ready and cooled, mine are fine. How are your peppers? Good? Okay, great. So with the peppers, we're going to be first chopping off the stem. And when you chop off the stem, try and chop off as little of the pepper as possible. So you just want to chop off your little stems. And then for the shishitos, we're just going to kind of run our knife down them, get them into chunks like this big. So I'm just cutting kind of circular chunks. With the bigger peppers, after you cut the top off, you might want to cut them open on one side like this. So you can kind of open up the pepper. And you can use the back of your knife to push the seeds out of the pepper. So once it's open, you can use the back of your knife and kind of push out the seeds of the bigger peppers. But with the shishitos, with the smaller peppers or those skinny peppers, you really don't have to worry much about seeds. And we're just kind of chopping them into roughly bite-sized pieces. And the chopped peppers are going to go in the bowl that's in your fridge that has the melons and cucumbers in it.
What about the nardellos? Do we take the seeds out of the Jimmy Nardello ones?
No, no, you don't have to worry about those ones. Just like the kind of bigger peppers that are like this kind of this big pepper, those are the ones you want to get the seeds out of. Just because they're really tough. And of course, if you want, while you're chopping, you're welcome to taste any and all of these pepper varieties to kind of get to know them and see what they're like. Because once they're in the salad, it's kind of, you kind of lose sight of it. You just start eating the salad as a whole and kind of stop noticing the individual ingredients as much. So feel free to taste any of the peppers. And this salad can be made with really any kind of pepper, any kind of sweet peppers that you like. Even just bell peppers. The bell peppers will just take longer to cook. Okay, I just finished up chopping my peppers. I'm gonna compost the stems and add the peppers in with the melon and the cucumber. So that's like one of the things that makes this salad so exciting and interesting is that you're combining these fresh, crunchy, sweet ingredients with these blistered, roasty, rich sort of flavors. So makes a really nice contrast. Whoopsie. Okay. How's everybody doing with the peppers? Okay, looks like we're all still working on it a little bit. No worries.
You did say in with the melon, right?
Yeah, peppers go with melon in your fridge. And if you want, when you're done with your peppers, you can just thinly slice the one pepper that we set aside for garnishing our gazpacho. I'm gonna slice mine into little tiny circles on like at an angle, so I have little pieces like this for garnishing. Mm.
Gracie, did you say that bowl can go back in the fridge?
Yes, yeah. The melon and pepper bowl can go right back in the fridge.
Okay. Should it be like, should we have incorporated it together yet or just leave it kind of?
No, you can just leave it for now. We'll give it a good toss once we get the dressing made.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of tidying up a little bit. I'm doing a little wipe down of my countertop to get any extra pepper seeds and pieces off of my cutting board. And then, so we only have one more thing to cut, and that's our onion. But before we cut our onion, we're gonna be frying it. That's gonna be our next thing that we do. So I want us to get our oil heating, and while our oil heats, we'll slice the onion. So you're gonna want a heavy bottom pot. I'll show you the one that I'm gonna use. Doesn't have to be huge. I'm gonna use this little all-clad pot here. And I'm gonna put in a cup of vegetable oil into my pot. Now, I know this is a lot of oil to use and oil isn't cheap. So we're gonna reuse the oil because it will have the flavor of fried onions in it. So we'll add it to our aioli and we'll also use it when we fry our albacore. And I'm just gonna start heating this up on a medium-high heat. So I have an electric stove. I'm at a 7 out of 10. Medium-high, set that up, and give me a thumbs up when you have your oil on the stove.
You say how much oil again?
It was a cup. Now, the reason it's good to have a tall pot for this and not like a frying pan is because when the onions hit the oil, they're gonna start to foam up. When you fry food, it heats up the water inside of the food and it evaporates and forms bubbles. So it's gonna, when we add our onions into the pot, they're gonna it's gonna foam up. So it's good to have a tall pot so it doesn't overflow oil all over your kitchen. And then make sure that you have a plate that's got paper towels on it for that's where we're gonna put our onions when they're done frying. So just nothing crazy, and you can use old newspaper or brown paper bags also, just something to absorb the excess oil. And it should be, you should set it right next to your stove. So it's an easy transition. So yeah, let me know when your oil is heating and you have a paper towel lined plate. Nice. Great.
Gracie, we're having a debate over here about which pan to use.
Okay.
Size wise, is it because we do have like a small, it's hard for scale, I guess, but we have like a small, medium, large. Like this is just like a small saucepan, and then we have this sort of like yeah, I don't know, I guess
I like the one on the front left burner.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
The,
you.
the little one I think might be just a touch too small.
Okay.
So when your oil is heating up and your plate is covered with paper towels, it's ready. We're just gonna you should have about half an onion left after we cut some up for our ceviche. These onions are from Sweet Leaf Farm. They're really good. They're very sweet onions. And so this is what my onion looks like right now. My half onion. Still has the peel on it. So I'm just gonna chop the top off, this part here, and then I'm gonna peel it. And then I'm gonna slice it. You really wanna aim for even slices here. So we're going for about a 1/4 inch thick. And the reason we want them to all be the same thickness is because they're gonna fry. And if there's some that are a lot thinner than others, they're gonna burn before the other ones are done. So really try and take your time. And we're gonna cut from going from this end, the top end to the root end. We're gonna cut half circles, half moon shapes. And we're going for about, like I said, about a 1/4 inch. So this is what mine looks like. Like this. Take your time. And do your best to try and get them as even as possible. It's not going to be perfect. And once you're done slicing, take a minute to just separate the onions from each other. So, you know, they'll kind of want to hang out with each other. So just use your hands to kind of break them apart so they're in nice individual onion slivers. And then we're going to put them in a bowl, a fresh bowl. I know we're using a lot of bowls. We're going to put them in a bowl with a little bit of rice flour. So you can start with just 2 tablespoons of rice flour. You could also use cornstarch if you don't have rice flour. This just helps them get crispy and stay crispy. But you could make fried onions by just putting the onions into the hot oil, and they'll get crispy, but they'll kind of lose their crisp pretty quickly. I've found a little bit of rice flour or cornstarch really helps them keep that crisp. So once you add in the rice flour, just use your hands to toss the onions in the rice flour, and some will, you know, kind of be left at the bottom of your pot or the bottom of your bowl. You just want to lightly coat the onions in the rice flour. You just toss them up with your hands so that there's a nice even coating on the onions. And then once your onions are tossed, you can test one by not dropping it into the frying oil, but just grab one and just dip one end into the frying oil and see if it sizzles. It should make a noise. Mine bubbles when I put it in, but it doesn't sizzle. So I'm gonna wait a little bit longer for my oil to get hot enough. You really wanna be able to hear it. And once you can hear it, you can carefully place your onions into the fryer, just, you know, maybe a 1/4 at a time so it doesn't bubble over. So I'm gonna go ahead and see how it goes. And you know that if you add a bunch of onions to the oil, you're lowering the temperature. So that's why it's gonna be important to make sure your oil is nice and hot. So my oil is sizzling. I've added all my onions to it. And at this point, we'll use tongs to kind of stir, because you'll notice that the onions aren't fully submerged in the oil. They're going to shrink down a lot as they cook. But right now they're kind of going to emerge from the oil a little bit. So just use some tongs to stir the onions around. Try and get them all in the oil. And this might take a little while for them to fry, but we're looking for them to get golden brown and crispy. So now that I've got my onions in the oil, I'm gonna step away for just a second. I'm not really worried about them burning right now since I just put them in. So I'm just gonna step away for a second from the oil, and I'm gonna go ahead and wash my dishes that I've accumulated so far, my chef knife, a couple bowls that I've used, my cutting board. If you have two people in your kitchen, one person can do cleanup and the other person can just keep an eye on the onions. You don't have to stir them constantly, but every couple minutes you want to give them a stir. And if you're worried about them, don't hesitate to unmute yourself and just ask me or vocalize what you're concerned about. This is most of the cooking that we're going to be doing, actual like cooking on heat that we're going to do in this class, other than our tuna. I'm just going to go back and peek at my onions now and give them a little stir. And I'll get back to washing my dishes. Make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom of your pot. Should smell pretty good. And at this point, all the onions should be completely submerged in the oil. They should have shrunken down a little bit. And then once the onions start to turn golden brown, you really want to stay with them because they can go from crispy to burnt really quickly. So once they start getting a nice golden brown color, you want to pull them right out of that oil. And you can use the tongs. If you use the tongs, make sure to bring your plate to right underneath or right next to your pot so that you don't drop oil on your hot stove. Or you can use like a little mesh strainer or a slotted spoon or spatula. My onions are still looking pretty pale and white. I'm curious if anybody else is like fried up already, if they have a nice, you know, gas stove that's just blasting and blaring and their onions are crispy already.
Have electric, but we have like, we did them in little batches. So that's kind of what we have so far.
Oh yeah, those are perfect. Those look amazing. So once they're out of the fryer, just sprinkle a little bit of salt on them.
Mine are just starting to get color, but they're still pretty pale.
Nice, okay. Well, what Nicole just showed us, that is exactly what we want them to look like when you pull them out of the fryer.
We ended up using potato starch because I had a whole bag of it. So I don't know if that makes any kind of difference, but
Who knows? I don't know. I've never used potato starch before.
yeah, my dad cooks with it a lot. So he bought some when he was visiting. He's made us like, what did he use it for? Chicken karaage, like, yeah, he prefers to fry with it for whatever reason. So that's what I
Interesting.
have.
I wonder. Now I want to. You know, I did get some from a friend. I've just never used it. I wanted to use it. I love making kimchi pancakes, and I saw one recipe where they called for potato starch in the recipe. So I'm gonna try that. All right, I'm starting to get a little bit of color on mine. But yeah, this is maybe one of those magical condiments, the fried onion or the fried shallot, that just have that ability to take any dish to, it just impresses people, I think, when you take the time to do this, because they're so flavorful and they have so much texture. And honestly, you can put them on any salad that you make, or my friend Alana always makes these sort of soba noodle bowls with lots of like fresh vegetables and like a limey ginger vinaigrette, and she always puts fried shallots on top of it, and it makes it so good. So I feel like as a garnish, even on a steak with a little like horseradish creme fraiche or something, and then you add the fried onions on top. Just a little something to have in your back pocket. And the oil left over, as long as you don't burn the onions, the oil left over is just so good. So flavorful, and can be used to cook whatever else you want to cook. You can fry eggs in it or fry potatoes in it, or, you know, like we're going to maybe add a little bit to our aioli later. It won't be wasted. Okay, mine are.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask if you had a suggestion about like recycling used oil for frying. Like, do you take it anywhere?
You know, I don't. I'll just bring it to my friends' restaurants, but I don't want to tell you guys that that's okay, because they would probably get really, really mad at me.
Yeah. All right.
So I'm at that point now where mine are starting to turn nice and golden brown. I'm going to turn my heat off, let the residual heat finish them up. I don't want to burn them. And remember, once you get them out of the pot, you want to sprinkle salt on them. Now, something we want to do before the oil cooks the little bits of flour in it that are left over at the bottom of the pot too much is strain the oil. So you're going to set up a little situation where you've got a nice metal bowl or a glass bowl that isn't cold and a mesh strainer to strain your oil into. That's going to help it cool down and make sure you don't get any of that burnt flavor. So I'm just using this bowl. I got this kind of bowl here, metal bowl, mesh strainer. If you don't have a mesh strainer, you can always use a coffee strainer, like a paper coffee strainer. And I'm just gonna strain my oil carefully, slowly. This is very hot and dangerous. So just please go move slowly. And that'll just guarantee that your oil is not going to have any burnt flavor in it. And now is a great time to tidy up a little bit if you didn't get a chance to step away when your onions were cooking. Just take a sec to tidy. Have a sip of wine, and then we're going to be taking our fish out of the fridge if you plan on cooking it. How did everybody's onions turn out? Is everybody feeling okay about that process? Did you get some crispy onions? Oh, they look beautiful, Holly. Nice work. Yum. Okay, so we are going to take our fish out of the fridge. Unless you plan on eating it raw, then you can leave it in the fridge. But if you're going to be cooking it, and I'm going to be cooking some of mine, and it's time to take it out of the brine and just set it on a plate to dry off a little bit. Now you'll notice the fish has gotten a lot firmer than when you first put it into the brine. That's the salt. When you brine things, the salt permeates the fish, and then there's osmosis, so it's going to pull the moisture out of the fish, the water, and the salt will go in until it's even on both sides, where the brine is and where the fish is. So I can kind of see here how far my brine has reached. because part of my fish is kind of pink still, and then around the edges it's kind of cooked from the brine a little bit. So it's going to make it nice and salty and a little bit cured. And then we can go ahead and dump out the rest of the feta brine and wash that dish that you had your fish in. So yeah, this has been my new obsession, and Casey and Bob know about this because they came to my pop-up a couple weeks ago using feta brine. Instead of throwing it out, I made a feta brined albacore dish at the pop-up, and the pop-up I did before that, I used the feta brine on a leg of lamb. And you can use it on chickens as well. You can just pour it over chicken, even if you're frying chicken or grilling, barbecuing chicken, and you want to just soak it overnight in the feta brine. It makes such a huge difference. And that got me thinking, yes, about pepperoncini brine, about caper brine, about the brine from grape leaves. And so now I'm just like a brine hoarder, and I need another fridge. Okay, everybody handle their fish.
My fish, I didn't cut it up. I don't know if I missed a step in that, but it's
Oh,
like one.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Are we supposed to slice it? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
No, I didn't instruct you to slice it.
Okay,
I did slice mine ahead of time just so I could get more brine exposure,
okay.
but it wasn't necessary. I did not give you instructions to do it. Beautiful. Okay. So the next thing we're going to be doing is making our salad dressing. So everybody should have one of these little magical packets of smoked paprika from Crossroads Farms. Now, this is my jam. You can open it and smell it. This is like the most flavorful pepper powder I have ever had. I am just blown away. I have so many different pepper powders from them. I'm obsessed. I have an Aleppo, Escalette, but yeah, I just wanted to give you guys some of the paprika so you could play around with it. So for the aioli, we're going to need a bowl, sort of a medium-sized mixing bowl. And you're going to need, oh wait, sorry, we're doing salad dressing. For the salad dressing, you still need a bowl. And you're going to need measuring cups as well as your sherry vinegar, an olive oil, and we are going to use the garlic. I gave you each a little head of garlic, and I want you to go ahead and peel 2 cloves of the actually, we're going to need 3 cloves, so go ahead and peel 3 cloves, and I don't want you to smash it to peel it. I know that's really the easiest way to do it, but just take a little time. You can use a paring knife if you want to peel the garlic so that the cloves remain whole, because we're going to be grating them. So 3 cloves of garlic peeled whole. Garlic, like the onion, came from Sweetleaf Farm. And once you've peeled it, we're going to use a microplane grater. Hopefully you guys have one of those. If not, just let me know and I'll give you another option for making your garlic into a paste. But my favorite way to do it is with a grater, a little microplane grater. So this guy right here. And I'm just going to grate 2 of the cloves into the bowl. 2 cloves. And does everybody have one of these? Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. Okay, we're looking good. So you'll grate the garlic as far down as you can go and then make sure to turn the microplane over and just scoop out the garlic paste with your finger. So you get it all in the bowl. 2 cloves. And you don't have to wash this grater yet because we're going to use it again to grate some garlic for aioli. Just having a little fried onion snack. Make sure they're delicious. Give me a thumbs up when your garlic is grated. 2 of the garlic cloves are grated in the bowl. Nice, Suzette. When you're ready, when the garlic is in the bowl, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of your sherry vinegar. 1/4 cup of sherry vinegar. And then you're going to add a whole tablespoon of that paprika I gave you. And you can kind of eyeball it if you want. It should be about 1/4 of the packet. I'm going to go ahead and write the recipe for this dressing in our chat box in case you, okay, you got to stop eating your onions, Suzette. Save some for your dinner, but also I relate. So our dressing, I'm going to write our little recipe here in the chat box. It's going to be a 1/4 cup, well, 2 cloves grated garlic, 1/4 cup sherry vinegar, 1 tablespoon smoked paprika, a 1/2 cup olive oil, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And you're just going to combine all those ingredients and whisk it up really well. And once you've whisked it up, we're going to go ahead and dress our salad. So you can get it out of the fridge and just toss it with this dressing. And you can start with half the dressing if you want. I like to use all the dressing. I just think it soaks up into the melon really nicely. And after you've tossed the melon and cucumbers and peppers in the dressing, go ahead and taste any part of this, the cucumber or the melon, and just see if you think it needs salt. Or remember, we're gonna put feta on it too. So, you know, it will get a little extra salt from the feta. The melon makes it so good. I like it. I'm gonna add a little more paprika to mine. And then it can just go back in the fridge. Now the salad will last well like this for a couple days. So the only thing in the salad that we're making that will not be good is the basil. So I always just add the basil when I'm garnishing right before I eat it. And now after you've tossed your salad, I'm just gonna do a couple dishes here. I'm gonna wash all my dressing dishes, except for that grater. And I'm also gonna wash the pot that I fried my onions in. What do you think, Holly? How does it taste?
It's so good. I am kind of tempted to add more paprika though.
Just do it.
That's really yummy.
And when you are done tidying up, we're gonna be making our aioli. So let me know when you're ready for aioli. All right, see you, Nicole. How did your salad taste? How's the melon?
It's really good. It was perfect spice level for me as is.
Good. Okay, great. So when you are ready to make aioli, we are going to be grabbing an egg, and we want to put the yolk of the egg into a medium-sized mixing bowl. And you can give the white of the egg to your dog. Lucky dogs. Here you go, bud.
Gracie, what size bowl did you have
This one.
roughly? Oh,
Medium-sized bowl.
okay. Okay, thanks.
No, no more for you. Okay, does everybody have a yolk in the bowl? Okay, if you've got a yolk in the bowl, you can go ahead and grate that last clove of garlic into the bowl. And then once you have the garlic and the yolk in there, we're gonna add a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. So far in the bowl, you should have Dijon mustard, an egg yolk, and a clove of garlic. And just give me a thumbs up when you have those three things in there. All right, we're about there. Looking good? Nice. Okay, Casey, you got it? Okay, great. So the next thing we're gonna add in is a tablespoon of our sherry vinegar. And then a tablespoon of that paprika again. That good stuff. And I'll put this all in the chat again, just in case you miss anything. 1 egg yolk, 1 clove of garlic, 1 tablespoon Dijon, 1 tablespoon sherry vinegar, 1 tablespoon smoked paprika. And then you can start with a ½ teaspoon of salt. We can always add more salt. And then we're going to be whisking it up. Make sure you break up any clumps of paprika. I'm noticing my paprika really wants to clump up. So I'm just using my whisk to really break up any of those paprika clumps. And once you've whisked it up, you can just slowly start streaming in that onion oil, which should be at about room temperature. And you only want to add in just the tiniest amount at a time. So like a tablespoon at a time, add it in and then whisk it until it fully incorporates. And then you can add a little more. But you've got to wait until you've fully incorporated the first tablespoon before you add your next one. And the more oil you add, the thicker the aioli should get.
And it's a total of how much oil?
What?
How much oil total are we adding?
We're adding the cup, the 1 cup. You'll get a little workout for your whisking arm. Mmm, yum. How's it going, you guys? Is everybody's aioli starting to get a little thicker? Good, good. Once you've added in the cup of oil, taste it and see if you want to add more salt or vinegar or paprika. I'm going to add a little more of all of those things, but the vinegar will make the aioli thinner. So don't freak out if you add a little vinegar and it thins it. That is normal. And the more you whisk it, the thicker it'll get. So if you're wanting it thicker, this is what mine looks like finished. So it kind of drizzles still, which I like. How's everybody's aioli tasting? Adjust it to be delicious for you. Mm. And let me know if you want any help or if anything's going in a weird direction or if you really don't like the taste of it, let me know. We can figure it out. And once I'm done with that, once my aioli tastes delicious to me, I'm gonna just set it in my fridge for now. I did add almost a whole other tablespoon of the sherry vinegar because it's going with the fish. I want it to have a nice acidity. So I did add more of the sherry vinegar to mine. How's yours, Suzette? You like it? How about you, Bob? You don't know. Maybe? It's okay? So once you've got it in a good place, you can go ahead and put it in the fridge and wash your aioli dishes. And grab out, grab out your gazpacho dishes, excuse me. Or I mean your gazpacho that has been marinating in your fridge. And once you get your gazpacho out, we're going to pull the basil stems out of the gazpacho. We're at the finish line here, you guys. All we have to do now is finish blending our gazpacho. And then if we want to cook our tuna, we can. And then we're going to be plating. So with the gazpacho, all we're doing is taking the basil stems out and then we're going to blend it. I want to make sure that everybody got vinegar into their gazpacho that's marinating because I forgot to add it to the recipe and then I was doing it yesterday morning and I noticed, so I added it in. So I added it yesterday morning. So if you did yours early in the morning, you might not have seen the vinegar on there. Did we get vinegar into it? Yes. Okay, great. So it should be good to go then. It should be ready as is to be blended on high and then tasted. And then you can add whatever you like to adjust it to your liking. So you can add, you know, a little more vinegar, more salt, more olive oil. You could add more, you could add some of your paprika if you want. But we're just going to be blending gazpacho. So I'm going to do it and I'm just going to mute myself really quick so you don't have to listen to my blender.
Gracie?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was losing battery, so I had to plug in. What did you say about putting vinegar in this mixture?
That there should be vinegar in it, that I forgot
Oh, okay.
to write it in the recipe until yesterday morning.
Oh, okay.
Did you do it early?
Yeah, I didn't put any vinegar in it.
Okay, so it gets 2 tablespoons of the sherry vinegar.
So go ahead and add that now.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and add it now.
Okay.
So I just finished blending mine. I taste it. I think it's great. I added my whole jalapeno, so mine's a little bit spicy, but that's how I like it. So, you know, feel free to adjust salt, acid to your liking. But for me, this recipe, it just hits. It's like you do all the work beforehand, and then all you have to do is blend it. Mm. And then I'll be curious to know who wants to eat their tuna raw and who wants to cook it.
We're cooking it. Nick saved a little piece for himself to have raw, but for the most part, we're gonna cook it.
Okay.
I'm gonna cook too.
Okay. Are we?
So are we.
Okay, great. So I just cut my loin into sort of 1-inch thick medallions. So I'm not worried about my gazpacho. I'm just leaving it in the blender. I'm gonna pour it into bowls when I'm ready to serve. But I'm just cutting so your loin should kind of be 1 or 2 pieces, usually kind of triangular. And so I'm just cutting it, following that shape, cutting it into medallions. So you'll have some weird little bits on the end that aren't perfect medallions. You can just cut those off. Mine kind of my end bit looks like this. Kind of a triangle shape. And I got a couple little scrappy shapes. If you want to eat it raw, you can just slice it a little thinner, more like a 1/2 inch. If you want to just slice a little piece and taste it raw, go for it if you feel a little adventurous. But the goal here is to make the medallions like, you know, kind of parallel cuts here, so they're nice and flat and even, and they cook evenly. Yeah, that looks perfect, Holly. So I'm just gonna slice a little bit off of one to taste raw, because I think it's really cool to taste the way the brine has permeated the fish, just eating it raw. So when I'm eating it raw, I kind of cut little thin slices like this. But so I'm gonna just show you guys before I show you how to cook it, just in case you were curious about how I would. This is basically gonna be how we plate the cooked version as well. But this is how I was gonna plate the raw version. Grab my aioli and just put a little dollop of my aioli on the plate and smear it. So this is what my plate looks like. A little smear of the aioli. And then I'll cut like 4 or 5 little pieces of the raw fish and lay them out atop the aioli, like so. And then I'll sprinkle just a touch of flaky sea salt over them. And then I'm gonna spoon just a bit of my corn tomato mixture right next to it. And we'll do the same sort of plating technique when we do our cooked one. And then a couple crispy fried onions, like so. So that when you eat it, you get a little bite of everything. I slice it into thin. But for those of us that are cooking, if you've got your medallions cut, you can start to heat up a frying pan. I'm gonna use my cast iron again on high. You wanna get it nice and hot. I'm just gonna eat this raw situation now and enjoy it with the corn and fried onion. It's really good. And it's gonna be really good cooked too. So with albacore tuna, it's most common to leave it pretty rare in the middle. Is anybody here not into that? All right, just be real with me, Nicole. It's okay, no shame. So we're gonna be searing it pretty hard on both sides. You might wanna have a second pan that's kind of heated on a more low, medium-low heat, so that after it's seared, you can set it on the lower pan so it can cook through without burning. But for the rest of us, you're gonna wanna drizzle a little bit of vegetable oil over your medallions. Just so they have like a light coating on both sides. Now I'm leaving it as is. I'm not adding any other seasoning because it's already been soaking in the feta brine, so it has some of that salinity already. And then we're serving it with our really well seasoned aioli and the corn and onions. So I don't think it needs many other spices on the fish itself, but if you want, you can add a little extra sprinkle of salt, or if you have a favorite spice that you think would be good, like cumin or coriander, or some of that smoked paprika, you're welcome to add a little bit of spice to your albacore. I'm just gonna cook mine just as it is. Now, one thing you're gonna want for this is a nice spatula, a nice sharp metal spatula, so that you can really, yes, perfect, Casey. So you can really get underneath your fish. Don't leave any of the crispy bits behind. That'll be perfect, Suzette. And we're gonna get the pan nice and hot. Is that a plastic one, Nick?
It's silicone. We have,
Okay.
yep. Okay, we got a metal one.
Okay, good. Yeah, the sharper and firmer, the better. So you can really like get under the pan. Yes, perfect, Holly. So once your pan is really nice and hot, you might notice that we're oiling our fish instead of the pan. I find that usually helps kind of reduce the amount of smoke produced in your kitchen if you just oil the meat that you're cooking or the fish that you're cooking instead of the pan, because then the oil's just right on the thing that's being cooked. And while your pan's heating up, you could choose a plate to plate the seared fish on. I like to use a long plate for this, but if you don't have a long plate, just any sort of nice round plate will work well as also. So I got this guy here, and I'm just gonna lay a nice big smear of my aioli on the plate so I can set my fish on top of the aioli. And whatever aioli you don't use will be good for the rest of the week and would be amazing on a BLT if you feel so inspired. So this is what the base of my plate looks like. I just did a big old smear of aioli. Now, when we're cooking our tuna, really just like 30 seconds each side. That's why you want your pan to be ripping hot. So you can get a nice sear on the tuna to 30 seconds, not too much more than that on each side of the fish. And I don't usually cook the outside edges. I usually just cook the cut edges of the fish, but if you want to, you can. If you like it a little more cooked through, you can sear the outside edges of the fish as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and test one piece now and see if it makes noise when I hit the pan. Yeah, it's got a nice sizzle. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay my fish in the pan. I'm gonna go ahead and lift up my first piece and see if it has a good sear on it. So it doesn't yet. I'll show you what it looks like. Looks like this. This isn't dark enough yet. I want really nice, dark, crispy color, golden brown on all side, on the side that's being seared. So I'm gonna wait another little bit here. Definitely gonna wanna turn your hood fan on for this part. Okay, let's check another piece. This is better, but still I'd like to see a little more color. I'd like to see this dark color that's here on the edge over the whole surface of the fish. There we go. This is what I like. This is it. When it looks like this, it's time to flip it. We want something like this on both sides. I'm smoking out my kitchen. Now it is a nice hot night here in Eugene, so this is going to be a good meal because it's going to be pretty refreshing. So I'm just taking my fish off the pan now. It's seared nicely on both sides. And like I said, if you don't like it raw, you can go ahead and start searing it on the outer edges. And I'm just kind of laying my fish over the top of my aioli, kind of overlapping. So they got like a nice little stack of the seared albacore. How's it going for everybody? I know this is kind of like the most action, high intensity part of the class. So is anybody freaking out right now? Or are we doing okay? We're doing okay? Casey, you doing okay? Bob, everything okay? Great. So once your fish is seared, you can go ahead and lay it on top of your aioli plate. I'm gonna just surround it with these beautiful cherry tomatoes and corn that are just like very lightly tossed in the oil with some salt. And you can sprinkle a little extra salt over the top of the tomatoes. So I just kind of lined both sides like so. So you can still see the beautiful seared fish. Casey, I'm counting on you to take better pictures than I can, okay? Yes, if any of you guys feel inspired to take pictures or get creative with the plating, the final step here is going to be to top it with your onions. You can do this however you like, whatever you think is beautiful. Yum, yum, yum. And then when you're done plating your fish, we're gonna plate our salad, which just needs a little feta and basil. So like I said, tonight, don't put basil on what you're not gonna eat tonight. Just put basil on what you're ready. So take out, you know, whatever you think you're actually gonna eat this evening. And then you should have some beautiful goat feta. And we're just gonna crumble the feta over the top of the salad and garnish with some fresh basil leaves. So I'm just taking out a kind of a small amount, probably half of what I made is what I'm gonna eat tonight. And I'm gonna add feta and basil to that. Where the heck did my feta go? Ah, I see. I'm really into this goat feta too from Fraga Farm. So good. And the lady at the Fraga Farm stand, she's the one who told me about using feta brine. She's the one who taught me how to use it because she uses it to brine her barbecue chicken. And then last but not least, we'll just pour our gazpacho into however many bowls of people or however many people you're serving. You can pour the gazpacho into that many bowls, however big of servings you want to serve. And we're going to garnish it with a little fancy olive oil if you have some nice olive oil. And a little thinly sliced pepper. Basil. What a wonderful smell. So I'll show you guys how I like to plate the gazpacho. So I just kind of stuck some of my peppers into the gazpacho like this. Then I'm gonna do a little drizzle of olive oil, and then I have a little bit more basil, so I might just garnish with a tiny little piece of basil, like some of those little tiny inside leaves. And dinner is served. So please, if you do take pictures, send them my way. I would love to see them. I love seeing how you guys plate things differently than me and just hearing how your food turned out. And yeah, does anybody have any questions before we sign off and just mow down?
This is all incredible.
Yay!
Thank you so much. That was so fun.
Thank you. That was amazing. I'm
Thank you
so
so
excited to eat.
Yes, eat, eat, eat. Enjoy, you guys. Thank you so much for cooking with me.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Tracy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.